Hello. I think you're muted, Mona, or
Oh, yeah, I'm muted.
Oh.
I think it's working today.
Did Jack? Is he coming today, or?
I think Jack may miss today's meeting because he personally have some like travel plan. So, and also like he was missing quite a few months meeting. So I take over the hosting to help like maintain the calendar and record the meeting.
Makes sense. So, thank you.
Hi, Danica. Hi, Rick. Hi, Dimitri.
Hello.
Hi, Russell.
Ooh.
Hi, Robert.
Russell's got some new birds.
I got so many birds. This is the Avery Island Bird Sanctuary, known as Bird City.
Let's just give 1 or 2 minutes for people to join. So please feel free to add the items that you want to discuss to the meeting notes as the agenda. And I will also personally take notes and update the meeting notes after this meeting. Yeah, I wasn't in the last meeting, and and the recording seems still not available yet. So if anyone knows if there are any leftover topics, please feel free to put that in the meeting notes. Shall we get started? Shall we move to the first topic today, which is its latest API discussion? Anyone want to start that?
Yeah, I put that topic there. So there's a lot of discussion over the past 2 weeks. So basically, the initiatives is Gabor from Imperatin in Cloudera's want to have an API that check if the one table is the latest status by, for example, by given the version number. So if the server will return is table is latest or not, then it can load the whole table metadata back to the Impala. This is one of their use case. They usually cache all this metadata in the Impala side. So they want to always get understanding if certain table is in the latest status or not. So I think there's multiple proposal there. The first proposal is right now we have a load table API, which every time you call that API, it will always return the full metadata to the client side, which is a lot of people think it's a lot. Then one of the solution is to modify this API so that by giving some parameters, so that if we given something like if this is the latest one or or version number, then it will return if that's latest or not. Another proposal from the Focal is we can use table existing endpoints to do that. I think normally like people have the consensus that's a workaround. We don't want to go that route. So this one person proposed the use HTTP caching. So HTTP caching, how HTTP caching works, you send back the timestamp or e tag so that HTTP will return the 304 if there's no update for a certain entity. Otherwise, it will return the whole response. Yeah, this multiple solution there. I'm not sure if people are already taking a look at these discussion threads. I think it's for use case perspective, I think it's quite useful. Not only for Impala teams, the other engines may also need that. Okay.
So I'm just trying to understand because I haven't seen the proposal, but this is latest API. What's exactly changing on the request side? Are we adding an additional query parameter, or is it only just on the response side that's changing? Or
yeah, there's no decision has been made yet, so there could be changed late the existing API like load table or row table API, or we add a new API. And there's some requirements also. Last time we think with running these requirements, say, okay, we have a bunch of tables, say all the tips, 100 tips under one namespace, and we want to get understanding of all this table status. Let's say if one out of the 100 has been changed, so is this kind of batching API will be needed. I'm not sure if it's kind of a combined effort. We're trying to do the combined effort here. For me, I think it's risk to do that. Like how do we decide it? Because if we were introducing a new batching API, then it's definitely a new API. We are not be combined with the existing one. I'm not the person who gave the proposal, so I just want to bring your attention that this is discussion the email list. If you're interested, please join that discussion so that we can move forward with that use case. I do think that use case is valid.
Thanks. So I do want to talk more about the cache path in the discussion, or we just continue the discussion in the demo?
Yeah, I'm not like to Russell's question. I'm not too expert on the HTTP caching. I think what it works is from the client side, you send back the last modified timestamp, or you send an e text through the header to the server or any like intermediate layer who cache these entities. then the server will decide, okay, if this entity has been modified up to from that time point, or if the entity has been modified according to the ETAG, then it will decide, okay, if it's modified, then it will not send it back normally. Otherwise, we'll send it back 403, 304, sorry. 304 means the table has not changed at all. The entity has not changed at all. Dimitri?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if this is just an optimization kind of use case that we're trying to engineer, or is the engine actually interested in the fact that there were changes, like material changes to the metadata? Because it's one thing if the engine just asks, give me metadata, and if it's not changed, then I mean, how the cache works, right? And I will just reuse whatever I have. Or does it want to know that it needs to do something, right?
Yeah, the problem of the current caching within the Impala side is we're caching all this table metadata, but it does not know if the table has been updated. And to get the metadata itself is costly, because every time you have to go through all tables and then load everything from the catalog side, which is a lot of the workloads. Right now, there's no batching API also. You can only do one by one. Let's say you have 1,000 people within your catalogs, right? You have to do one by one. If you were trying to caching all of them, you have to do 1,000 call, and every call will return the whole metadata back to the Impala.
But do you want to refresh it as soon as possible? Like, for example, say if the engine polls every second, and then most of the responses are just use cache, use cache, use cache, use cache, and then at some point the server has to actually do the work to load the metadata, right? Is that okay for your use case, or are you trying to also like prevent extra work happening on the server?
I don't think it's since it's caching. This Impala use case, I don't think the caching itself requires strong consistency between the server and the clients. They should be able to tolerate a little bit latency between the caching and what's really happens on the server side. That's my impression. But yeah, I'm not the person who are in the Impala team. Yeah. So overall, I think I'm not quite see a value to use HTTP caching, because essentially it's a very same stuff. Instead of like if you use parameters, get parameters, post parameters, send it back to the server side. The downside of the caching is, first, we probably never use timestamp. We use ETAG, which is kind of version number for this entity, right? The downside of caching is you cannot customize this ETAG. It's opaque, and ideally we will just use the version file name, which has a UID within that as the version number, so that every time the server will understand the client side request semantically or instance well by that way, other than you rely on another opaque string, opaque ID to do the refreshing. Oren?
Yeah, I guess one question is like, is it mandatory for a server to return an ETAG? Because like let's have like the question Russell has, like, is it like an API change? Like typically some server may say, oh, I don't have an ETAG, and basically when someone is doing if match, well, because there's no ETAG, basically they will get the full document each time. Some servers may return an ETAG, and I don't think like, I mean, you kind of like say, oh, like we could use that, and that's got some make me worry a bit, because like it's supposed to be opaque and it can be transformed like if you have like intermediate proxies, because like there may be like over considerations which are included into like what makes the ETAG truly unique, like the context. And so I don't know, I mean, if you start saying, oh, like sure, ETAG is opaque, but that's just thing, and like all servers need to return, then I consider that like a Iceberg catalog API change. If you're just saying, oh, what, like some implementation may support, and we change the client just to handle in case like we do etag, or in case like we want to support like if modified scenes, as like any other regular HTTP client. For me, that's something, okay, that's just like a client issue. Like maybe your client can be smarter in how to handle cache primitives.
My understanding, yeah, I'm not the HTTP caching expert, but my understanding is you have to change the endpoints anyway if you want to kind of put this kind of functionality on top of the existing APIs, right? Because the behavior has been changed if you send back the etag or timestamp to these endpoints. So you have to change the spec anyways. There's no way, like not change spec, because otherwise the client will just, if client accidentally send back the etag, then it will expect some unexceptional behaviors.
Not necessarily, because like it's really a HTTP thing. Like it has nothing to do with like the REST API itself. Like that's a generic behavior that lots of servers implement without saying. Like S3 implements etag things. They mention that in the header, but like there's maybe like out there like also like we've seen actually that like some implementation of S3 compatible things when they don't have etag. And it's a matter of a client of, hey, I didn't get like the etag value, so there's no point of me sending like if match. That's basically that type of conditional thing which happened at the HTTP client, and the REST client by itself is like, okay, like I'm just get 2.0 or like 3.02, and that's basically the best I can do. So that's
yeah, I think so.
I know it's murky a bit, but like I guess that's the question. Like saying like if you start saying like, oh, like no, that like the server has to return back a etag value, and it means that like no, like all server implementation have to figure out something, and that may take time. That may cause like interoperability issues for a while until like all servers become compliant. Versus like, oh, like some server may return etag, or some server may return like over caching primitives, and like the client can leverage those, and like that's more relaxed.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not so familiar with HTTP caching. If there's something like you can free to get, then it's cool. I don't think there's big issue there, other than like you cannot put any semantic things into the etag, right? But I'm still confused how the clients works if clients just send back. Like if client just get a 304, which is no response, maybe that's fine for certain clients. Certain clients, for example,
I mean, it would be like it would be a check potentially on the. It means, for example, like when you're getting through the client the Iceberg table, like you may get like some type of key, caching key, and like in the next request, you basically the Iceberg client pass that key back. And what happens at the HTTP client layer is that like that key is basically like the etag, and like if you provide the key, like you are basically like pushing like a if match. So it's type of like the how to interpret the HTTP semantic here, and like how it translates into like clients. But some clients they say, hey, like we don't support that, and that's fine. And some clients says like, oh, like if I didn't get the key, like there's no that, so.
Yeah, if the client does not support that, then always get back the full response, right?
Yes.
But I think so in that case, the use case will be narrowed down to the client side, where like you send a multiple HTTP request from the client side for the same stuff, instead of like, so for caching use case, they want to initiate that just to send it once to get it back the table status. It's not like send it multiple times, because if that's HTTP level stuff, I would consider it's not quite useful in this case, right? When the Impala or any engine try to get the latest status of the table, you just want to send a one HTTP call, get it back the stats, and then decide what to do, right? But if the caching, then that means you have to send it first, then you load all tables metadata, then when you send the next, you get the cache and say, okay, it's you've already load latest.
I mean, like the thing is that like basically the primitive you want is like, give me the latest if something has changed, kind of thing, right?
I think
Right.
it could be the case that you have two different clients though, right? Like if you imagine maybe Impala has some key value store where they're caching metadata, It could be that one cluster and another cluster share that key value store, and they're both querying the same REST catalog, and they're both checking the same table UUID, and they're both trying to find out if it's still valid. So it's not obvious to me that the HTTP path actually solves all the possible use cases for is latest. It also could be that a cluster shut down for some time and came back online, or a cluster has multiple clients. It's not necessarily the case.
Like if the caching key or the caching value, right, E-tag, like that things, is stored in their KV store, then the premise is all right.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, that's something we discussed in the thread. So can we customize the E-tags, make it as semantic, like it's attached to the table version?
I mean, why do you want to customize the E-tag? That's the part I don't get.
The reason to caching that is this enable more use cases, right? Because in case you, let's say what Eric said is you have two HTTP clients or your server get restarted, then you use that version number, you can get an understanding, okay, this is actually not changed, but even though your server has been restarted, right? Otherwise, there's no way.
I mean, yeah, but like it can be anything basically which says that like what I ask at time A and type B is different. Like it could be version, could be the hash of the version, could be some random internal ID. As long as it basically says like the representation of the object has changed, that's what E-tag is for.
Yeah, so that parts need a.
You don't need people to interpret that. Or actually, you may not want to. Like when you start doing that, basically people tend to rely on that. And like if for some reason, like no, like the representation changed because depending on the user context, actually there's a feed also like usually like you specify in along with E-tag, which is vary, which says also like which headers may change the representation or not. So for example, like if you say, for example, authorization header may change the representations, that means, for example, that like you, like two people using two different authorization header may get different representation, even if that's like the same API at the same time. So that's why like it's really a cache thing. Like it's really in the purpose of like general purpose cache, and like the more you put in the E-tag as context, like the more people may actually like collapse things together, where actually you want them like to keep things separate. I think like one question, for example, later is that like we may have FGAC. So when we do like load table, we may actually return like the FGAC policy as part of. I mean, the proposal is I'm not sure where the proposal is exactly, but at some point that was, I think, the proposal. And so you may not want, for example, to cache the FGAC policy for all users, because that would be bad, right? Like that might cause the engine to return like the wrong results. So that's where, for example, you would do that. But like that also means that the client has to be like smarter in terms of like, hey, like my cache is per user now. It's not more because like the server instructed me that actually like I need to keep things separate.
I mean, it's the HTTP caching stuff looks like a more generic solution for all these get endpoints. It taps snippets, but I don't think it's have a lot in this use case.
I mean, like right now, I guess like all, I mean, table metadata, I mean, is the same for all users. But like if when we are, I mean, if at some point we implement FGAC, or we would, I mean, would we want basically to create like a separate API for that? Or would we mean like basically like when you do like load table and we return that informations, we would actually not to cache that, because that would be dangerous.
Dimitri?
Yeah, I mean, when we think about HTTP caching, this is really a generic mechanism for whatever payload we return from endpoints, right? But my impression is that if for engines, they're more interested in specific Iceberg metadata components, right? I know there is a parallel discussion for like fine-grained metadata, whatever it's called. And I think from that point of view, it's good to have maybe a specific implementation for checking changes that is actually an Iceberg API. So for example, for an engine, like if it has a particular snapshot at hand already parsed and loaded, they're interested if that snapshot is still latest, right? They are not interested in changes to other snapshots. But if we were to use caching headers, we are forced to account for changes in other sections of the metadata when we generate the responses, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I would also prefer to have a separate endpoints or not use HTTP, rely on HTTP caching for this feature. Well, I think that's a discussion. We're still waiting for see if Gabo can propose a former proposal. Then we can moving forward from there. Otherwise, we just see how it works.
So I think we can move to the second item, which is like a request to review the auth manager PR. Do anyone want to like talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I was hoping Alex would be on the call because he is the primary author.
Yeah.
But I mean, from my point of view, I would say I would encourage everyone to have a look because this is a big proposal on the client side that enables catalogs to implement different authentication mechanisms and for clients to basically allow pluggability of authentication mechanisms on the client side.
Do you know, is there any way we can break that down into smaller PRs? So it's like a delta of almost 5,000 lines right now.
Yeah, I know it grew. I don't know. We'd have to get Alex involved in I mean, CSPR, right?
Yeah, I'm just realistically like, I don't know if anyone can review something that large.
Yeah. I mean, when I get to talk to him, I'll mention that. But really, I think it started small. The idea was to just allow authentication mechanisms to come in as plugins, hoping that we wouldn't actually, because we definitely didn't want to put all the OAuth2 improvements and token exchanges there at the same time, but I guess it still became pretty big, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even being able to break it down into multiple commits within that PR, I think would help. But like, yeah, right now that's a lot.
Yeah, sure. I'll mention that to Alex, see what he thinks.
I just want to check. I see already a few comments and people already reviewed that PR. Is there any blocker for that PR, or we just need a approval, overall approval, general approval for that PR?
Yeah, I think Daniel did a lot of comments and reviews already, and he seems to be approaching consensus with Alex. I was just wondering if other people had ideas that, right? I mean, or if you're okay with this approach, then approval would help certainly.
Yeah, my impression is if Daniel already commit time to review, probably his proposal is important. Otherwise, the other people still have to spend a huge amount of time to review. It's okay to let for me to comment, but we still needed Daniel's approval in that case.
Oh, for sure. And I'm pretty sure that Alex already has Polaris use cases in mind on his PR.
Okay. Yeah. So I see like these are the only two items currently on the agenda. Is there like any other topic we want to discuss about before we move to the discussion for the meeting time and sort of like schedule things? Yeah. I think I think we can move to the discussion for the meeting time for this catalog thing. So just a quick reminder. So based on my understanding, the current schedule would be so the first event series is a Wednesday 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is this meeting, and it will occur every 3 weeks. And the second will be the Wednesday 8 p.m. Pacific time slot, recurring every 3 weeks. And I believe if the schedule, based on the previous schedule, which will occur in next Wednesday evening. So I have like so the first proposal is to like cancel the meeting next Wednesday, is due to the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday. Yeah, and the second one is to like discuss about things Jack mentioned. This also brought up in the last meeting, is to like reduce the cadence to once every 3 weeks. So just so I would definitely like send a dev list to discuss more about that. But I just want to like gain some ideas from people in this meeting. So do we want to so first if do you think it's okay to reduce the cadence? And second, if we like want to reduce that, do we want to like rotate the meeting time? For example, once every 3 weeks we do the 9 a.m. and then in the next time we do the 8 p.m. But we will keep the frequency to the to make this like occur every 3 weeks.
So both times will be every 3 weeks?
Or we, well, I mean, like, like both time will be every 6 weeks, so we are kind of like trying to rotating the time if we decide to like reduce overall cadence to every 3 weeks. I mean, like once, for example, today we do 9 a.m. and then 3 weeks after we do 8 p.m. on Wednesday. I will.
Yeah, Rahil?
Yeah, I think for the other time zone, I remember we had 8 p.m. originally, and I think people weren't attending that. So was that 8 p.m. time zone like ideal? Like, I'm just trying to like who exactly was benefiting from that, if that was a Europe time zone or Asia
No,
or
8 p.m. Pacific is middle of the night in Europe, I think.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like maybe like we should first agree like what is the time zone if we're gonna do another one that's ideal for people, because I remember no one was attending that 8 p.m. one.
I see.
Even for the Eastern time zone, 8 p.m. Pacific is pretty late. It's coming down to like
11, right?
11, yeah.
So maybe we can just take an action item to like in the dev list, just ask people like what is the best alternative time zone outside of like the current one we have.
Yeah, cool. That sounds good. So then I think I can keep this meeting time as for now. So since it all occurs like every 3 weeks, and since we will cancel the one next Wednesday due to Thanksgiving, we can have plenty of time to figure out the best time for the other time zone, and we can do further arrangement of the meeting time in the next few weeks.
Sounds good. And did you mean to say 8-7 for like the starting, or is that a typo or?
This is just what I copied from the last dev list for this. So starting, I think like Jack set up this 2 times, maybe in August or.
Right. Yeah. So when would we want to start this then, or?
So, I think the main point for the time is just that the 8 p.m. one will occur like 1 week after the 9 a.m. one. So, yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any other item like to discuss about?
Just one last thing. I think for cadence, then, are we saying 3 weeks is like a good time, or do we feel like that's kind of maybe not enough time to go through all items that we have? Because then that's like what, one, I guess, community sync for just general items, and then one catalog sync in a month, or
Yeah, that's part of
3
it.
weeks might be good. Like so we don't have so much talk about rest catalogs. Every 3 weeks we have one could be good. That's my perspective. 9 a.m. PST works well for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 3 weeks is okay as long as we figure out the 8 p.m. time. Because if we go like alternating between early and late, then effectively for most people it's just going to be every 6 weeks, right?
basically.
That's a good point.
Yeah, let's discuss this on the mailing list. Maybe see what people say. Just collect
Yeah,
votes.
I will send out in list to like propose these and ask for feedbacks, so and we can see like what people think and set up and make the decision later.
Sounds good.
Cool. So if there are like no more items to discuss, I think we can end this meeting earlier today and save everyone 20 minutes. Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending this meeting.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you after Thanksgiving.
Thank you.